السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله على إحسانه وشكر له على توفيقه وامتنانه، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله تعظيما لشأنه، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله داعي إلى رضوانه وعلى آله وأصحابه وإخوانه. أما بعد، لكل شيء إذا تم نقصانه فلا يغر بطيب العيش إنسان، هي الأمور كما شهدتها دول، من سره زمان سأته أزمانه. Ikhwani fillah, we are reaching the conclusion of our lecture series regarding the history of the Muslims in Andalus, the history of Muslim Spain and Portugal, from conquest to our eventual defeat and our fall. Tonight, inshallah, we're looking at the fall of the last area that was owned by the Muslims, the fall of Granada, the fall of the last area of Muslims, Granada, and the fall of Andalus. And thereafter, in the forthcoming lectures, we shall look at what happened to the Muslims of Andalus, that none of them remained upon those lands. We shall look at that in the forthcoming lectures, inshallah. For tonight, we're looking at the fall of Granada, the last area of Muslim Andalus. Ikhwani fillah, in the previous lecture, we mentioned that when we lost Cordoba, the capital city, in the year 633 of the Hijri calendar. We lost Valencia 636, Jayan 643. Then we lost Sevilla in the year 646. By the time it reached the year 709, we had lost many areas of Spain and Jabal Tariq and Portugal. All these areas was gone. The only area that was left for the Muslims was a place called Granada. That's the southeast of Andalus. Southeast of Spain, this area, or this province called Granada. Granada is the only area that was left for the Muslims in Spain. All the Muslims that were expelled, they were defeated and they were chased away from the other lands, Barcelona, Toledo, Batalayos, whichever area, they all gathered in this area called Granada. Now let us jump history from 709, let's go to the year 871 of the Hijri calendar. This 160 years approximately, nothing much was happening with the Muslim area of Granada. Why? Because Spain had two main kingdoms. The kingdom of Aragon, that has the capital city of Barcelona, and the kingdom of Castile. So these two kingdoms were fighting every single time. They were in war. So they were busy with themselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected the Muslims as a result of this. We go to the year 871 of the Hijri calendar, which is just 26 years before the fall of Andalus. The year 871 of the Hijri calendar, just 26 years before the fall of Andalus. The leader of Granada is still that family of Ibn Ahmar that we mentioned in the previous lecture. Every single leader from this family was called Muhammad. Muhammad the first, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. But it does not matter what your name is. It does not matter what your tribe is, your lineage is. What matters are your deeds and your actions. So you cannot protect yourself and say, oh Allah, my name is Muhammad, how are you throwing me in the hellfire? No, you're not that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You're a different Muhammad. We shall judge you with your deeds. So the leaders are always called Muhammad. So the year 871 of the Hijri calendar, the leader of this area of Granada is one of the Muhammads. It's called Muhammad ibn Sa'd ibn Ahmar. He is the leader. But he has conflict with his own blood brother. Muhammad, also is also called Muhammad Abu Abdullah al-Zaghl, the brave one. So you have the leader who's called Al-Ghalib Billah Muhammad, and this other one, al-Zaghl, the brave one, Muhammad. They are fighting for this small area that's left. 15% of Spain has been left for them, and they're still fighting over it as Muslims. The rule we kept as before from all this history series, we said, whenever Muslims you fight for that piece of cake or that piece of land or that piece of property, two Muslims fight, you will find a third party that was not there in the calculations initially. They come, they benefit, and both of you Muslims, you lose out. So whenever you fight all Muslims, someone else will come and benefit from your fight. So these two brothers, they start fight and they start a conflict and they start war with each other. The second brother, Muhammad al-Zaghl, he goes to the king of Castile and he seeks his assistance to fight his brother. And a war occurs amongst them and they fight. Thereafter, they decide to make peace. They have a resolution. What was the resolution? They said, let us divide this small area that's left of Andalus into two. One part one brother takes, and the other part this other brother takes. So this is the resolution they took in the year 871 of the Hijri calendar to divide this small land they had into two, because to satisfy this brother and to satisfy this brother. We mentioned in the previous lectures that Granada is divided into three main areas. There's Granada itself, then there's Malaga or Malqa, and there's a place called Almeria. These are the three areas of Granada. So this has been divided into in the year 871 of the Hijri calendar. Then comes the year 874 of the Hijri calendar. One of the worst marriages in history occurred. A marriage that will change history. A marriage occurred in this year that will change the entire history of Spain and Europe. The Queen of Castile, Isabella, got married to the King of Aragon, the King Ferdinand. So the King Ferdinand of Aragon got married to Queen Isabella of Castile. How is this significant, Ikhwani fillah? All the wars, all the problems they had for the last 170, 200 years plus ended as a result of this marriage. They became one kingdom. By the year 879 of the Hijri calendar, they had become one kingdom, the kingdom of Spain. So there's a new kingdom that was no longer fighting amongst themselves. They were united with marriage, with blood. Queen Isabella of Castile and King Fernando of Aragon united in marriage, the year 879 of the Hijri calendar. The leader of Granada at the time, the upper Granada or the northern, is called Al-Ghalib. He had a wife called Aisha al-Hurra, Aisha the free one, that's her name in history. Her son was called Muhammad al-Saghir, Muhammad the small one. So this Muhammad al-Saghir was supposed to be the crown prince. But this Al-Ghalib, he was in love with a Christian lady called Thuraya, obsessed with her. And he had a child from her called Yahya. So he decides that I love this woman too much. Although the child is not my firstborn, I want this child to be the new leader of the Muslims in Granada. I want this child who has come from a Christian lady to be the new leader of the Muslims of Andalus, henceforth once I pass away. So he decides to take his first wife, throw her in house arrest or in the palace arrest, and also the son, Abu Abdullah Muhammad al-Saghir, throws him also into house arrest, so that all the kingdom can go to his newborn son from this Christian lady, Yahya. Of course, the people of Granada, the Muslims, are not happy. You want the future of us as Muslims to be in the hands of a Catholic, a person who's Catholic blood? No. So they rebelled, and they went to the palace, and they freed Muhammad al-Saghir. Muhammad al-Saghir, Arabic, al-Saghir means young one, but also means small in mind. Saghir means small. So this man was young, yes, and is also small up here also. He was very immature and not thinking ahead. So immediately he comes out of prison, what does he do? He revolts against his father, and he manages to overthrow his father and expel his father from the kingdom. And this is something that has happened in all human history, where you find a father overthrowing a son, or a son overthrowing a father, even by killing. Brother killing brother, sister killing brother, brother killing sister, all for the sake of this seat, this throne of dunya. And this dunya is not permanent. So he overthrows his father, and the father runs away south to the brother that they were fighting before, Az-Zaghl. So that is the state of the kingdom of Castile, the kingdom of the province of Granada. The new leader is Abu Abdullah Muhammad al-Saghir, the northern part, and the southern part is by his uncle Az-Zaghl. No order, ikhwani fillah. Ma'asi is still spreading in society. Alcohol, people are drinking alcohol openly in Muslim society. There is zina, fornication. People are engaged in this dunya. They are so wealthy, ikhwani fillah. They have israf. They waste money on anything. This was the state of the Muslims. So Fernando and Isabella, they know that these Muslims, number one, they have numbers. These Muslims have ulama behind them. So they're not easy to conquer. We have to study the situation. So the first time it is said, wallahu alam if it's true, it said the first time they send a spy. So the spy comes and finds a young man who is crying. So they asked the young man, why are you crying? He says, I took my arrow, I shot at the target 10 times, I missed 2 times, or I missed 1 time. How can I miss? So he's crying because of target practice, he missed. So he goes, the spy, back to Fernando and says, this is the state of Muslims. So Fernando says, no, they're not yet ready to be conquered. Another time the spy, or a different spy, or the same spy I believe, he's sent also to check the situation of Muslims there. He finds a different young man also crying a lot. So he asks him, why are you crying? He says, my girl was taken by another man. How can I live without her? Issues of romance. They knew that this is now the correct time to conquer the Muslims. When the Muslims are engaged in this issue of romance and love and girlfriends and boyfriends, they're not ready for what we have prepared. Umar radiallahu anhu, he says that, O Muslims, you do not defeat your enemies because of your numbers and your weapons. You defeat them because of your obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when this obedience is absent, then you are the same as your enemies. When this obedience to Allah Azza wa Jalla is absent, then you're the same as your enemies. So Fernando, he sees now the nephew and uncle are fighting. So he starts attacking fortresses of Granada and taking advantage of this infighting between them. The uncle comes from the south of Andalusia and he manages to conquer Granada and expel his nephew. The nephew, once again, he runs to his friend, the Christian king of Castile. And he sits over there for a while, planning and plotting. The uncle sends a lot of money, a lot of gifts to the king of Castile, the new king, Fernando. Give me my nephew back, I'll give you this money. The king refuses. He totally refuses. He has an agenda, he has a plan he wants to implement. He wants to use this son to hit the Muslims, to make them collide, to divide them and conquer. That's the correct way of dealing with Muslims. If you want to conquer Muslims, we have studied historically, divide them and you shall conquer them. Divide them whichever means, tribal, racist, family ties on the seat, whatever means you find to divide them, that's how you shall conquer them. So he refuses to give the nephew away. So then they plan with the king of Castile. The king of Castile says, let us do this. You as Muhammad al-Saghir, look for some of your friends, some of your colleagues, an army, small army, no problem, I'll support you. Attack from the north. I will attack from the south, Malaga, and we defeat this uncle of yours. This uncle of yours is brave, yes, but you can defeat him if we attack him from multiple locations. So he starts, Muhammad al-Saghir, his attack from the north, and the king, Fernando, and Isabella, Queen Isabella, they start the attack from the south. The Muslims, they fight. But they're defeated, and the state of Malaga is taken. Granada is taken by Muhammad al-Saghir. Malaga is also taken by King Fernando. The uncle al-Zaghl runs away to a place called Wadi al-Ash, or Wadi Ash, and he forms a small kingdom over there, a small tiny kingdom that's not even worth mentioning historically. So now the leader is Muhammad al-Saghir of the northern part of Granada. The southern part has been taken by his friend, the king of Castile and Aragon, King Fernando. So he goes to King Fernando, he says, thank you, you've done as we agreed. Now give me Malaga as you promised. He says, no, I don't want to give you Malaga right now because it's not safe. Your uncle can come back anytime and take it. The same story they said 150, 200 years ago when they took over Tarif. They always break the promises. أَوَكُلَّمَا عَاهَدُوا أَهْدًا نَبَذَهُ فَرِيقٌ مِّنْهُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّهُمْ لَا أَيْمَانَ لَهُمْ. Allah says, لَا أَهْدَ لَهُمْ. They do not have that, they do not keep their word. They do not respect whatever agreement you've signed. So he took over, Fernando, he took over Malaga. Then a few months later, less than 2-3 months later, he declared that every Muslim that's living in Malaga is a slave, is property to be sold and bought. So all the Muslims of Malaga were enslaved. So the only area that's left right now is Granada. Granada, there's an army from the south that has entered because of this betrayal of this Muhammad al-Saghir. And from the north, of course, there's the kingdom of Castile and Aragon. Where are the Muslims going to go? So the year 895 of the Hijri calendar arrives. And the Muslims are besieged from all sides. So Muhammad al-Saghir, he's told, now you have to surrender to us Granada. without any conditions, you have to surrender to us, Granada. The Muslims, when they had this news in Granada, they got a lot of religious passion. A person amongst them is called, I think, Musa. He started inciting the Muslims to jihad and to defend their lives and their property and their deen. So they started an insurrection or a revolution to defend themselves against these enemies. But they were not ready for this large army. So they fought for a while, 7 months, 9 months. They tried to defend their land, to defend their honor, but they were not able, or they were not very successful. So the King Fernando and the Queen Isabella, they sent a treaty, an agreement to Muhammad al-Saghir. They tell him, surrender and give us the keys to Granada, and we shall give you 67 conditions we are going to comply with. We are going to respect your houses of worship. We are going to respect your lives. We are going to respect your property, your women, your Islamic laws. We are not going to cause you any harm. Just surrender and you shall be one of our leaders or one of our ministers in our government. We give you these 67 promises we make. So Muhammad al-Saghir, he looks at this agreement and he thinks for a while, I have gotten now a way of escape, a way of escaping these people. Let me accept this agreement, but I give my own 2 conditions. It says, condition number 1, King Fernando and Queen Isabella must swear that they shall abide by this agreement. They broke their word with the issue of Balaga. They've broken their word so many times with breaking the treaties. So right now, I want them to swear that they shall keep this agreement. Of course, it's the easiest thing for them. We swear we shall abide by this agreement. It's lip service. It's very easy for them. Number 2, to ensure that your swearing is honest, we want someone respected by you as the King of Spain that will uphold the terms of this treaty. And we want the Pope in the Vatican City to also sign this agreement, that he will be the overseer of this treaty. So let him also sign. So the Pope looks at the agreement, also he signs and agrees to this agreement, that the Muslims will remain, they shall be allowed to practice their religion, to have their mosques, their women will not be harmed. So they signed the agreement. This is the year 897 of the Hijri calendar. They open the gates of Granada, and they enter the gates of Granada, Ikhwani Fillah. They go straight to the castle of Al-Hamra, one of the most beautiful castles ever built in human history. Till today, there's no castle that was built with a ceiling of gold and silver. We mentioned before, it was built by Abdurrahman al-Nasir. No such palace. They go to the palace and they hang the silver cross on the palace, announcing that the Catholicism has won, that this area is now the area of the Catholics, and the Muslims have no more rule in Andalus. This is the 2nd of Rabiul Awwal, the year 897 of the Hijri calendar, when we lost officially Spain and Portugal. This was the day we lost Granada, the last area of Muslim Spain. This is 2nd January, the year 1492 of the Christian calendar. 1492. That's why we mentioned previously, that there was Olympics in the year 1992. There was a Barcelona Olympics in Spain. But this was not the biggest celebration for the people of Spain in the year 1992. If Olympics was to come in Kenya, people will not be sleeping for months and months. It will be a huge celebration. It's a big event. The entire world is here. The World Cup in Qatar was a big event for the people of Qatar. The Olympics in 1992 was not the biggest event. The biggest event in Spain in 1992 was the day 500 years since we expelled the Muslims from Spain. So this Muhammad al-Saghir, he decides he has to leave Spain and go to Morocco. He goes with his mother and he climbs a hill overlooking Granada and the beauties of Andalus and the wealth that they had there and the glory they had. They have built Jannah on this dunya. They have built a civilization like no other. People these days talk about Dubai and Doha and other things. Dubai of those days cannot even compare to this Dubai. That Dubai was even greater, more majestic. People were way ahead of their times. So he climbs a hill, and he overlooks Granada and he starts crying profusely. His mother says to him the famous words. He says, Ajal. His mother Aisha al-Hurra says, Ajal, فَلْتَبْكِ كَمَا يَبْكِ النِّسَاء على ملك لم تستطيع أن تدافع عنه كالرجال. Cry like a woman on a kingdom that you're not able to look after as a man. Cry over a kingdom that your forefathers brought, that you're not able to look after as a man. And this place, till today, is a tourist area in Spain. It's known as the last, or the place the Arabs were crying, or the Moors. They call us Moors. I don't know where that name came from. Moors. If you look historically, that's what they call the Moorish civilization. You don't know where that name, even they accept that they don't have an origin for that name. So that hill remained there. So Abu Abdullah Muhammad al-Saghir, he lives and he goes to Morocco, where he is arrested for betrayal of the Muslims. He's thrown in prison, and a few months later he passes away. So the Muslims have an agreement. This is the year 1492 of the Christian calendar, that the King Fernando and the Queen Isabella, they had sworn that they will abide by. Immediately, 2 months later, the first thing they did, they issue a decree called Al-Hamra. The decree of Al-Hamra says that all Jews must be expelled from Spain. So they start with the Jews. They expel all Jews. You have two options as Jews. You have to be converted to Catholicism, you have to be Catholics, or you have to leave Spain, or you shall be killed. You have 3 to 4 months to leave. You can't leave with any money, nothing. So the Jews left in numbers. And this is something that has happened in Europe a lot in its history, that they used to expel Jews many times in history, and sometimes kill them. But the irony, the surprising irony, they say the irony is, where do these Jews end up after they're expelled? Where do they end up? They always end up in the land of Muslims. We Muslims, we bring them to our families, we bring them to our homes, we welcome them. So you can find Jewish populations in Tunisia that are originally from Spain that was expelled. Jewish populations in Morocco, originally from Spain or from France or from England, they were expelled by the Europeans. But we Muslims are the ones who took them in. Even after World War II, when they did the Holocaust and everything, the Jews, they ended up in Palestine. We welcome them to their home, and you end up with no home. It's one of the surprising things. You welcome them to your home, and you end up with no home. So this is what happened to us. So the Muslims had signed the agreement in the year 492 of the Hijri calendar. The Jews were expelled a few months later. About 7 years later, one of the cardinals is called Francisco Jimenez de Cisnero, something like that. Francisco Jimenez de Cisnero. He started inciting the people of Andalus, the Muslims especially. He starts forcefully converting them to Christianity. And he wants to kill them if they do not convert to Christianity. He wants to cause them harm. He sees people, even women, they cause so much fasad. So the Muslims, they revolt. And when they revolt, they use this as an excuse to break the treaty that they had signed with the Muslims. They broke the treaty, the King Fernando and Queen Isabella, about this period, and they declared that the Spanish Inquisition shall begin on the Muslims. A forceful conversion of Muslims by force to Christianity. They came up with torture the like human beings have not seen in its entire history. The soldiers of Napoleon Bonaparte, when they conquered Spain, the French Republic, the famous leader is Napoleon. So Napoleon enters Spain after conquering it, and they look at these prisons, at these dungeons where Muslims were tortured. And many of them, they fainted or they vomited, just imagining those tools were actually used by human beings against fellow human beings. In the forthcoming lecture, we shall look at the torture of the Muslims and the Spanish Inquisition. We have gone through a journey from the beginning of Andalus till to the end. In summary, let's just summarize quickly. We said that the Muslims conquered Andalus in the year 92 of the Hijri calendar. Who are the people who conquered Andalus? Musa ibn Nusayr and Tariq ibn Ziyad. This was 92 of the Hijri calendar. So the period of conquest was from the year 92 to the year 95 of the Hijri calendar. Then from the year 96 of the Hijri calendar to the year 138 of the Hijri calendar was a period of governorship of Andalus, led by the first leader Abdul Aziz ibn Musa ibn Nusayr. Thereafter, we talked about how the Muslims reached as far as southern France, and they even went further to reach about 100 kilometers of Paris in the Battle of Tours or the Battle of Poitiers that was led by the great leader Abdurrahman al-Ghafiqi rahimahullah. So Muslims were present in most of Spain and also southern of France, except a small area they did not conquer in northern Spain, the Asturias region or Mantiqat al-Sakhr, that this grew later on to the kingdom of Leon and grew later on to become the kingdom of Castile and grew later on to become the kingdom of Spain. We lost entire Spain because of that one small area that the Muslims did not conquer in the northern Spain, the Asturias region or the Basque region of the Asturias region. So the 138 of the Hijri calendar, Muslims were in a very weak state in Andalus. They are almost thrown out of Andalus. Islam almost ended because of the inner wars, the civil wars, the dhulm, the oppression that was occurring in Andalus. The year 138 of the Hijri calendar. Then one man, we mentioned previously, he was the most wanted man in the entire world. Wanted dead or dead. Why? Because he came from the family of the Bani Umayyah, the Umayyad dynasty, Abdurrahman al-Dakhil. The dynasty was overthrown in the year 132 of the Hijri calendar by the Abbasids. So he was the most wanted man in the entire world because he had a claim to be a Khalifa. He had a rightful claim to be a Khalifa. His name is Abdurrahman ibn Muawiyah ibn Hisham ibn Abdul Malik. His grandfather, great-grandfather, grand-uncles, all of them were Khulafa. So he had a claim to be a Khalifa. But he was the most wanted man. This one man, comes by himself in Andalus, the year 138 of the Hijri calendar. No army, and he manages to gather people around him, and he reconquers the entire Andalus, starting a period of glory, of izzah and quwwah for the Muslims Andalus. This is known as the Islamic Emirate of the Umayyads, starting the year 138 of the Hijri calendar to the year 316 of the Hijri calendar. We mentioned Abdurrahman al-Dakhil, Abdurrahman al-Dakhil, then Al-Hakam ibn Abdurrahman al-Dakhil, then, am I confusing? Hisham, then we mentioned Abdurrahman al-Awsat, we mentioned all these leaders. By the time the year 300 of the Hijri calendar came, the Muslims were already also weak again in Andalus. The year 300 of the Hijri calendar. Then the grandson of the leader at the time became the leader of the Muslims, Abdurrahman al-Nasir. He started slowly establishing authority. By the year 316 of the Hijri calendar, he was the most powerful man in the entire of Europe. And declared himself a Khalifa in the year 316 of the Hijri calendar, Abdurrahman al-Nasir. He led the Muslims from the year 300 to the year 350 of the Hijri calendar. Then he passed away. That's the strongest leader ever produced by Spain. If you asked who is the strongest leader ever produced by Spain and Portugal, it's this man, a Muslim man, Abdurrahman al-Nasir. Am I talking too fast? This is a revision. It's all on the recordings. 350 to 366, his son takes over Al-Hakam ibn Abdurrahman al-Dakhil. He passes away in the year 366 of the Hijri calendar. He does a great mistake, Khanifillah. He gives the rulership of the Muslims to his young son who's only 11 or 12 years of age in the year 366 of the Hijri calendar. This young man has no way of ruling. So the Chancellor or the Prime Minister, Muhammad ibn Abi Amir, is the actual leader of the Muslims. Muhammad ibn Abi Amir continues a period of glory and strength for the Muslims. He's never been defeated in battle. He wins many battles until the year 399 of the Hijri calendar, when his so-called Dawla al-Amiriyya collapses. Then after that, we started a period of anarchy. Muslims in Spain were divided into 22 different states, the Ta'ifa states. From the year 400 or so, anarchy, war everywhere. They divided a lot because of the infighting that they had. And this continued until they came the empire of scholars, Dawla al-Murabitin, and the Battle of Zallaqa in the year 479 of the Hijri calendar. By Yusuf ibn Tashafin rahimahullah, he managed to defeat the Crusaders in a great battle of Zallaqa, and a short while later he made Andalus into one country, and he was the leader of the Muslims in Andalus, Dawla al-Murabitin, the empire that was formed by scholars. We spoke about how this great empire had three great leaders, Sheikh Abdullah ibn Yasin al-Jazuli, Abu Bakr ibn Umar al-Lamtuni, and Yusuf ibn Tashafin. We said that all the Muslims in West Africa and Central Africa, where the largest population of Muslims in Africa is, And where the reason that Africa is a majority Muslim country is because of this man, especially Abu Bakr ibn Umar al-Lamtuni. He spread Islam to all those lands, Ghana, Guinea-Bissau, Togo, Chad, Central African Republic, all those countries, Nigeria, Niger, Mali, all these countries, because of this man. Burkina Faso, all these countries, Benin. Benin is called, what's the name of Benin? Dahomey, the kingdom of Dahomey. All these lands were spread by this man, Abu Bakr ibn Umar al-Lamtuni. Thereafter the Murabitun, it fell. It fell to the Muwahidun. Muhammad ibn Tumirt, Abdul Mu'min ibn Ali. We spoke about all this. Then there came the Battle of Arak that was led by Abu Yusuf Yaqub al-Muwahidi in the year 591 of the Hijri calendar. The Muslims were very victorious in this battle, but it's one of the last victories. They were defeated thoroughly in the Battle of Iqab in the year 609 of the Hijri calendar, and from that date on, we went down. Because of that great loss in the Battle of Iqab in the year 609 of the Hijri calendar, we lost the great city of Cordoba, the city of scholars, in the year 633 of the Hijri calendar. Ikhwani fillah, just for benefit, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took from the Muslims from one side, but He gave them in another side. Remember, our beginning of the story, we said Musa ibn Nusayr and Tariq ibn Ziyad, especially Musa ibn Nusayr, he was the governor of North Africa. He conquered the entire of North Africa, and he conquered Spain and conquered south of France. But he had a plan of action. He wanted to conquer France, then Italy, then go all the way around Bulgaria, Yugoslavia, Hungary, Turkey, to conquer the city of Istanbul, Constantinople. His plan was to conquer the city of Constantinople. So the Muslims lost Andalus. That was supposed to be the stand or the area that we are going to conquer Constantinople from the west. But alhamdulillah, we lost Andalus, yes, in the year 492 of the Hijri calendar, of the Christian calendar. 1492 of the Christian calendar, we lost Andalus. But a few decades before that, the year 1453 of the Christian calendar, or the year 857 of the Hijri calendar, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us an even greater victory, a greater ghanima than even Andalus. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed us to conquer this city that was known as the city that is most fit to be a capital city of the entire world. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the city of Constantinople. Yes, so we lost in the west, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made us gain all this area of Turkey, of Bosnia, of Yugoslavia, all these areas, Kosovo, Albania, all these areas became Muslim. So inshallah, tomorrow night we shall look at the torture and the Spanish Inquisition that occurred. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.